Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky, your host, and I'm joined once again by our absolute favorite journalist, Eric Starkman from Starkman Approved. Welcome, Eric.
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you back, my friend. How's life?
It's good. We're getting some cool weather out here in LA. Makes me feel like I'm back in Canada some nights.
We've kind of been up and down here on the edge of Canada in Michigan, and I'm sure you're not missing most of the weather that we're getting nowadays.
I get a little homesick sometimes from Michigan. As you know, I live there and have very good memories of my time there. And I often think I would, welcome one snowstorm. And I figure after about 30 minutes, that would be enough.
Yeah, I like winter, actually. I grew up way up north in Michigan, but it does get old after a few months for sure.
Yeah, those long gray days.
Yeah, so you enjoy your weather out there in LA, and we'll plug on through our winter here in Michigan. But we are here today to talk about what we promised months and months ago, last time you were on here, and that is Subaru.
And I'm excited that my admiration and respect for Subaru has been validated by Consumer Reports.
That's what you just came out with, so we will dive into that. But let's start off. Just tell me, what is it that kind of has you so positive on Subaru top line, and then we'll dig into the details.
Well, let me disclose up front. When I first bought my first Subaru, I had an issue with the vehicle.
Oh, okay.
It was an issue that 99.9% of the population wouldn't have made an issue about. And I brought it to Subaru's attention. I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to encourage other people to say, wow, if they did that for him, they'll do that for me.
Yeah.
Let's say they didn't tell me to go screw myself. They treated me with a lot of respect and made me an offer that was far and away better than anything I would have expected. And I just like the integrity of the company and the respect they treated me with has been awesome. And the other thing I'll tell you about Subaru that is just heightened my loyalty to the brand. Subaru is not a company, like, people don't talk about it in the same breath as Tesla, which I think is actually is a compliment. But they're really edge on technology when it comes to safety. But they were also one of the first auto manufacturers, I believe, to go into Apple Play. When I got my first Subaru in 2016, nobody knew what Apple Play was, at least the people I talked to. And there were problems with that technology. And I can't remember if it was my first Subaru or my second Subaru. And we'll talk about how I ended up getting new Subarus every 18 months.
Okay.
But I can't remember if it's the first or the second, but my infotainment screen, I think the technical term is brick, that just stopped working. And, I've been reading, I just read today that Tesla has some of these problems and people are expected to suffer with it. Subaru was great. They didn't expect me to drive without full use of all the technology that's like integrated into that infotainment system. And they allowed me to rent a Subaru Ascent, which is a big SUV. I love that truck. Yeah. I can't justify owning one, but they gave it to me and I loved it so much. I didn't care that it took 6 weeks to get my car back.
Well, that's a big deal.
I just love the vehicle. And when they gave it back to me, the new infotainment system worked. So I was really excited about that. And, the great thing about Subarus and how I ended up, those cars last.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you had some really good treatment early, which is always going to obviously please a consumer. And I think we all realize cars, it's pretty rare to get one where you don't have a problem or two to deal with. So I imagine that getting that kind of excellent treatment early on helped hook you as a customer, but you've been a longtime customer now, right?
Well, since 2016, a friend
Yeah.
of
So,
mine, I have a friend in Michigan. Her dad was a Ford supervisor. She knows cars as well as anyone.
mhm.
And, I previously owned an Acura TL that was an amazing, I was turbocharged. It was an amazing vehicle. And I was reluctant to give it up, but it rode really low. Like it was a very low riding vehicle. And I found it increasingly difficult to get in and out of.
Yep.
In Los Angeles, the driveways and the parking lots are banked really low.
Mhm.
So, like, when you like go into a parking lot or into someone's driveway, you hear the sound of metal rubbing against, um,
Yeah.
pavement. And, I was told that it's not going to hurt the car, but it never sounded good.
Right.
So,
Yep.
I asked her what I should get, and she was the one who turned me on to Subaru. And she
Okay.
knows me well. And for me, the two most important things in a car are safety and value, and reliability. And I think if those are your priorities, Subaru's an elite by itself.
And so, absolutely everyone out there is gonna spark to hearing that you tout those things with Subaru, but you went way beyond that in your article. There's so much more you like about this company. So let's dive into some of that. Um, I'll share with you my first experience with Subaru. I've never owned one, but I had a really good friend. Geez, and this goes back a long way, 25 years, I bet. When they first came out with the Subaru Forester, he was one of the first customers, and we were buddies who would go skiing and mountain biking together. And holy cow, that thing was a godsend. Getting around to all the crazy places in Michigan where the roads aren't so great, and you know, we're looking for backcountry experiences. That was back when everyone else had the pickups and you know jacked up crazy four-wheel drives, and here we are tooling around in this little mini station wagon and getting everywhere they're going. Um, you don't use that kind of thing much in California, I'm guessing, but
Well,
that have to
actually,
be.
not I don't, but like people who live in Northern California,
Oh, right, yeah, yeah,
you usually need chains to go to Lake Tahoe.
oh yeah, going over the mountains.
You own a Subaru, you probably can get away with just driving there.
Yep. Which, what we had going on was different from what you have going on out there, but they have established a huge presence in that outdoorsy crowd, right?
Oh, very much so. And it was always perceived as kind of a crunchy granola crowd.
Right, yep.
They're really big, and not so much as they used to be, because Tesla's the new status symbol for that crowd. But
Yep,
Subaru was always big in Oregon, California, Massachusetts, like the New England states. You know,
yep,
I don't imagine if I went to Texas, I'd see a lot of Subarus. I don't perceive that as their market. But their marketing is, I love and appreciate great marketing.
mhm,
And like Subaru, his name is, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's Alan Bethke, and he's been there for 25 years. And that tells you something right there. It's like they're a
yeah,
company about consistency.
yep,
They make changes to their vehicles, they're incremental. Like they don't just, you know, it was you called it a station wagon.
yep,
And they've kind of not kind of, they've migrated to more of an SUV type vehicle, and
Yep.
the next generation of the Subaru Outback looks very much like an SUV.
Oh, okay.
They're really, but they don't just make changes like, that they don't want to reinvent their
They,
wheels. They want
they
to,
they don't make crazy changes like Jeep has done, for example.
yeah. And their marketing, one of my, it's a legendary marketing story, and if you don't know it or your viewers don't know it, I think they'll appreciate it. So the Forester used to have a reputation of being a car that was owned by lesbians. And the reason it generated the reputation, because it's true.
Huh? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
So it was over 20 years ago. And I just so admire a company, the way they did it and how they did it. So their sales were down, and they wanted to understand who their market was. So they
Mhm.
did all this market research, and they found that lesbians were like that really appreciated their car.
Yeah.
They started advertising in gay and lesbian publications, and that further penetrated the market. But you think today, like, well, that's no big deal. But over 20 years ago, that was a big deal. Ford faced a lot
Yeah.
of,
So they went a direction a lot of companies wouldn't.
no, in fact, or was dangerous. Now, Ford, to its credit, they have been at the forefront of gay and lesbian rights long before, like when DEI were just three random initials in the alphabet. They have
Yeah.
they have a really good, solid reputation on that front, and they faced a lot of boycotts. Like the Christian organizations had boycotts against Ford for years because they would support. They were advertising in gay and lesbian publications, and they were supporting gay causes. Subaru was more under the radar. It's a smaller company, and
Yeah.
they never did it because they said, "Look, we're DEI. Look, we support." They didn't have, paint their cars in the gay flag colors. They just did it, and
Yep. Well, and you know, companies have to decide for themselves what kind of political causes they're going to get involved with. But what I'm hearing is Subaru is able to reach out to a market segment that might be a problem with another part of their market, and they did it in a way where they didn't turn off their previous customers, and that alone that's a balancing act that not a lot of people could pull off.
well, the other thing about Subaru, which is why I like to be attached to the brand, as you know, I'm a dog lover.
Yeah. Yep.
So I spend a lot of my time these days when the news gets me down watching golden retriever videos.
Do you watch Andrew Cotter?
No.
Oh man, you got to look him up.
So
I'll send you a link.
thank you. Because
Okay.
no,
And for our audience, I'll put a link in the show description as well. If you aren't familiar with Andrew Cotter and you're a dog person, you need to check him out.
so Google in my feed, like it's scary how well they know me. Like all the,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
it's a
Feeding you
double-
exactly what you're looking for.
it's a double-edged sword because you don't like to know that this company knows like what I'm working on, what I'm interested in. But in my feed, they have like a 90% accuracy rate of the stories I would be interested in. And in every time my feed updates, there's always a golden retriever video.
Well,
And I
there's a
watch,
reason they collect all that data on you, right?
and I sit and watch it, and whatever's bothering me makes me feel better. So the thing about Subaru is their research shows that a majority of Subaru owners own pets, and more than half of the pets are dogs.
Yep.
And they've tapped into that market in a big, big way. So they're big. Most car companies, when they have these auto shows, they just showcase their cars. Subaru has puppy adoption things at their,
Oh, cool.
and they donate money to pet adoptions, and they're very transparent about a lot of companies say they do things, but you wonder if, like, do they really do it? Like, who knows? But they always post. They have a report with who they're giving and how much they're
Mm,
giving,
yep.
and their commercials feature uh, three golden retrievers and a Labrador retriever, and that. I try to remember the line. It's called "Dog Tested, Dog Approved," something like that.
Yep.
And they feature dogs in their car. Driving their cars and going through car washes, and they know their audience, and they know the people who own Subarus own dogs, and probably lapping it all up like I do. And they are so savvy. Like I just give them so much credit. They make these YouTube videos that they post, and one of their YouTube videos a year ago, I always wonder, like, how do they get the dogs to do this? I can't get my dog to jump into the car. I'll come in. they got like three dogs, one behind the steering wheel, and it's like, how did they do that? And they actually featured two of the trainers.
Yeah. Well, so they have dogs that are much better trained than yours or mine, is the answer.
It turns out that one of the trainers, one of the original dogs for their commercials, was her dog.
Oh, wow.
It was fascinating to watch these two women and talking about what they do and how they do it, and you get to see like what goes into it, and it was pretty exciting. And I just thought, like, these people really know their market, and and I respect them for that. You look at Jaguar, they're coming out with. Did you see that? Like,
I did.
And it's, Elon Musk, was saying, well, there's no cars in it. Well, I wouldn't fault them for that.
Right.
It was the messaging that they were sending out. I mean, this is a company that I associated with brand with James Bond.
Yeah.
It
Talk
just
about big changes.
And I don't think I'm a big fan of Toyota, but Toyota's marketing is the quality of its cars. Like, I couldn't tell you what Toyota's slogan is. I couldn't tell you any of the car makers' slogan today, but I could tell you GM's slogan from the '60s, and Ford in the '80s.
Yeah.
Ford was like quality, where quality's number one.
Yep.
Everybody remembers that, and that was an example of marketing that was aligned with like what the company was trying to be. They had a CEO, and I forget his name. He died about in the past year, but quality was a big priority for him, and that was like an example of how they were integrating their messaging and their marketing messaging to the messaging to their manufacturing team. And I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
It would be a joke today if like Ford came out with that slogan where quality's number one.
Yeah, well, and that's a huge change. So I hadn't looked at quality ratings in forever, and that picture's so different than it was 10 years ago. I wound up just buying a Kia for my wife recently, and I wouldn't have known that Kia was up in the quality rankings until I had to look at them. And yeah, it's really a completely different picture. And, you talk about in your articles, the quality piece all the time, and the recall situation. And these companies that you like, they're the ones who don't have those problems. And it's a shame, I was going to say unparalleled. I'm not unparalleled, but I'm among the unparalleled of backers of American manufacturing. But boy, when it comes to car quality, we don't have a whole heck of a lot to hang our hats on these days, do we?
No, and to be fair, GM and Ford, I don't think of them as U.S. auto manufacturers.
Well,
Headquarters here. GM
yeah.
is the biggest vehicle manufacturer in Mexico.
And it is interesting because we talk about the foreign automakers, but you buy a Toyota or a Honda today, it was made here.
Many of them are, but more importantly than that, they're designed and engineered in America. I just interviewed. It was really exciting. I interviewed the deputy engineer who's responsible for the Toyota Tacoma.
Oh, that was my last truck.
Yeah, it's a truck I've always wanted to own. I can't
Great.
justify it. I don't. I'd feel kind of silly driving a Tacoma. My contractor, he drives a Tacoma. It's like he's got tools. I don't have,
Right.
So I was all set to buy a pickup, and I had a colleague I really respected. She said to me, "Please don't be that guy." Yeah, I've never. That always haunts me. That phrase, "Don't be that guy."
Yeah. Well,
The Tacoma is designed and engineered in Michigan.
yep.
It's just outside the Ann Arbor area. And I've talked to some of these Toyota people. They're all Americans, and many of them are from Detroit. They're Kelty Design Studio out here in Southern California. It's like it's world renowned. Well, that guy's from Detroit. And Toyota is very committed to building their cars, and they're spending $20 billion on electrification in the United States. They haven't pulled back the way GM and Ford has. Toyota's building a three-seater electric SUV. They haven't pulled the plug on that. They built one of their critical battery research and development battery centers. That's in Michigan. It's an incredible story, and when you consider, there's a publication called iCars.com. That's what it is. But I might have the name wrong. But anyhow, every year they come out with a ranking of the most American-made cars.
Yep.
But they don't just look at where the car is assembled. They look at like where the parts came from, where the engine came from, where the transmission came from, and then they rank based on all this criteria. What are the most American-made cars? Honda, I think, scored three of the top positions. Toyota 2. GM and Ford weren't even represented there.
Yeah, isn't that something?
And the most American-made GM car, I think, was like 31 or 33 in the ranking. So that's pretty sad. People think when you're buying a GM and Ford car, you're supporting America.
Right.
You're actually, Ford doesn't have as big as manufacturing presence in Mexico, but they built this huge engineering and design studio in Mexico where they're doing a lot of their work, and it's the number one engineering. It's the biggest engineering studio in Latin America. So,
now, does Subaru have an American presence? I didn't even look into that.
So Subaru, they do build cars in Indiana.
Okay.
They've committed to building more of them in the United States. I think the number is actually 7, but I might be mistaken. But I know that they've committed to moving more of their U.S. manufacturing to the United States. Subaru of America is based in New Jersey. So they have their marketing and sales operations in New Jersey.
Yeah, so it is interesting what you said. People have that natural assumption that when you're buying from, I guess it's not even really the big 3 anymore. It's kind of the big 2 plus a truly foreign one. But Ford and GM, you're right, unfortunately, aren't necessarily American made anymore. When we talk about Subaru and going back to that marketing piece, how have they done in recent years as far as just overall sales? Do you know that?
I think their sales were flat for a time, and
Okay.
they're starting to move up again. The Forester, I think, was redesigned, and I think that's gotten really great reviews. My sister drives a Forester, which was news to me, and my brother-in-law drives Subaru. Also, he drives an Outback. So we're a family of Subaru people,
Yep.
and as I say, cars are very personal.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
like
Yep.
they make a statement. So when I see somebody driving an EV Hummer, I have an impression of that person that's not very favorable. I don't know if you know this, but like this environmental group, came out with these rankings, like what are the most green cars and what are the next range, and here what are the like most environmentally hostile cars.
Hmm.
And the Hummer was ranked, the electric Hummer was ranked as more environmentally harmful than most gas engine vehicles.
Yeah, I don't see how it couldn't be. I
Well,
mean,
the size of the battery alone, I mean, do you realize the environmental harm to mine all that?
oh yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
then you got the damage to the roads that it does. And,
Yeah.
and you know,
Well,
who,
and I applaud that group if they're actually taking an objective look at the numbers, because most of them don't. I mean, one of my pet peeves is you'll see uh, this chart out there talking about the efficiencies of EVs versus ICE cars, and it's got numerous problems with it. They don't compare the total supply chain efficiency. They're just comparing the car itself. So they're ignoring all the generation that has to happen with EVs, power, that goes on in coal powered or natural gas powered plants most of the places. But the other thing, even more objectionable, is their efficiency numbers have these different things that add up. And one of them they're claiming is a 22% boost in efficiency from braking regeneration. And the way they calculate it, they're kind of adding that back in to offset other losses. That's not the way it works. That's power that's already been used. You can get it back and it doesn't take away. You don't get to add it back in. They're double counting it. And so those numbers are just bogus. That being said, I know EVs are a great solution in many cases. Do you follow Patrick Anderson?
very closely.
Yeah, I mean, I love the work he does. He's an EV driver himself, and he will tout them for what they're good for, but he will not shy from saying what they're not good for. And I love that kind of objective view. But the ones who put these numbers out there that are utterly bogus, it's like, you're not doing your cause any good when you put things out that anyone with half a brain can figure out is misleading information.
You know who agrees with you 100%?
Who's that?
Toyota.
Oh, yes, for
There's a
sure.
company that's gotten a bad rap.
Yep.
It's Toyota, because people were knocking them for like not rushing with their chickens without their heads on, like pumping out electric vehicles.
Yep.
And
Well, yeah, when is it the former CEO now that first said,
well, he quit. He had a lot of integrity.
mm-hmm,
He used to get on board. He said, maybe I'm just too old.
right.
I got great people, a great team behind me, but I'm not getting on board, and I'll just step
Yeah.
aside. And he wouldn't go along with it.
But they savaged him just for having that viewpoint. And boy, all the prognosticators saying, "Oh, that's just going to be the end of Toyota," right?
Right.
You don't hear them saying that much anymore.
No, but you also don't hear them saying like how much they're investing in electric vehicles. So I can't
Right.
do my best to synthesize what their messaging is. But there's videos, and I'm trying to remember his name. They have this like brilliant guy from MIT who's I I if you Google Starkman approved in Toyota, I did a whole thing about their strategy. But their belief is that electric vehicles are a solution to reducing emissions.
Yeah.
They're not the total solution. That
Yep.
for some people, an electric vehicle doesn't make sense. So
For
someone
sure.
who just drives to work, maybe, 10 miles or 20 miles a week, the amount of, environmental damage to build an electric battery and an electric vehicle doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah.
And like a hybrid makes sense, which they have. So they built
Yep.
the latest Prius has a range, the plug-in Prius has a range of 40 miles,
Yeah.
which for most people is enough. So if you
Mhm.
buy an electric Prius, you're not going to the gas station very often unless you're taking a trip up to northern Michigan, in which case
Right.
you don't want to be charging
Right.
between, you know, Grand Rapids and Detroit and northern Michigan. So
Yep.
that's their argument, that for people, they explain it really well.
Yep.
And they're very methodical, but they're getting into EVs in a big way, and nobody gives them credit for it. Nor do people, like the media now talks about hybrids,
Hmm.
the thing. Consumer Reports says the only hybrids that they strongly recommend are Toyota and, believe it or not, Hyundai Kia.
Yeah.
They say that they've perfected the hybrid technology.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's another whole story. Maybe that's another a future episode, is to talk about the Koreans, because they've done some amazing stuff too.
The thing I've never been able to figure out about the Koreans, and I've read everything I can about Hyundai and Kia. I don't know if they make money or how much. Are they super profitable? Like, people have written about their transition and their design, but nobody ever wrote, like, do these guys make money?
Yeah, I don't know that either. All right, so that's our homework, is to dig into that, and maybe that'll be the next visit for you, is to talk about those guys.
And I want to share with you one other thing that I always
Yeah.
find really fascinating. So, are you familiar with the Chevy Volt?
A little bit,
So the Chevy Volt was a plug-in hybrid.
right?
Had the range like more than a decade. It was a car before its time, and it was developed before Mary Barra became CEO. By the way,
Don't get you started.
I had to at least make a passing reference. But I've been fascinated with the Chevy Volt. Here in Southern California, you don't see a lot of Chevy. A lot of GM products. You don't even see a lot of Ford products. It's, I think Toyota is one of the leading brands. The Asian brands are big out here. Toyota, for a while, I think, was the number one brand, but I think Tesla's over. Well, Tesla's the number one brand now. But you don't see a lot of GM products here, and you don't see a lot of Ford products, except some of their trucks. You see the F-150s out here.
Yep.
But you do see, and this fascinates me, a lot of Chevy Volts. And they stopped making the Chevy Volt in 2019.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's been a few years.
A car that's at least 5 years old already.
Yeah.
And I've just made it my business. Every time I see a Chevy Volt owner, I always stop and say, "How do you like your car?" "I love my car."
Wow.
And I say, "Well, is it reliable?" "It's been great, and it's 40 miles to the gallon, and 40 miles on a charge." And they were way ahead, and they killed it.
Yeah.
And it's not as well known, but GM was an early pioneer on electric vehicles, and they saw that too.
Yep. Well, we'll see where it all goes. We're about out of time. Any closing thoughts about Subaru before we wrap up?
No, I'm pretty excited for them. I'm hoping that their rankings of being the most reliable brand. To a lot of people that matters.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah,
And,
for sure.
that was, I refer to Subaru as the little company, the little automotive company that could. And I kind of see it like the Rocky story. Like
Yeah, the underdog.
they punch way above their weight,
Yep.
Very focused. Their marketing is excellent. I love to support the company.
Well, you wrote a phenomenal piece on it. I'll include a link to that in the show description as well. And as always, thanks so much for being here, Eric.
It's always a joy. Thank you.
We'll do it again. And of course, thanks to all of you. You are why we're here. Our fans and viewers and listeners out there. Thank you guys. We're here every Tuesday, so come on back. We'll have another show for you. Until next time, this is Jim Vinoski signing off from Manufacturing Talks. So long.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinoski. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.